Hi everyone, I'm Chyill and welcome back to another Rainbow Six Siege video. Today we will be taking a look at Lesion, the newly added Hong Kong SDU Defense operator, so sit back, relax and enjoy the show. In this episode of my detailed Rainbow Six Siege guides, Lesion, the new Hong Kong defense operator, will be our main topic for today. Comparing the two new defense operators, Lesion isn't as fun as Ella for me, but I think that he is still quite fun to play and I think that he is still a pretty good addition to the defending roster of operators because of his special gadget. With a Lesion pick, the incoming operators progress toward the objective room can be slowed down quite significantly actually, especially if the attackers have to go through tighter spaces when advancing towards the objective room. And so if your team strategy requires enemies to be slowed down, or if that's how you like to play, that is being disruptive to your enemies and slowing down their push from a certain direction, then Lesion might be the choice for you. Lesion is a 2-speed and 2-armor operator, making it so that he is neither slow nor fast and neither tanky nor squishy. And this is a good thing for Lesion because I think that he's best played as an area denier, somewhere near to the objective room, and therefore the 2-speed stat line allows him to quickly react to any pushes from other directions while being able to take more hits than the 3-speed operator before going down. In short, I think that Lesion is definitely a very decent defender. He's not a must-pick like Rook, but he does work quite well in some of the smaller maps and is very capable of significantly hindering enemy advances for a decent amount of time. In this operator guide, just like the Mira and Jackal guides I have made previously, I will start off with introducing and discussing about Lesion's unique gadget, the Goo Mines. Then I will cover his weapons and secondary gadget choices, before finally covering his playstyle and some of my tips on playing him effectively. And so without further ado, let's begin. First off, let's talk about his unique gadget, the Goo Mines. Lesion can throw out these Goo Mines onto any flat surface, and the mines will deploy, cloak and stay there until some enemy walks near it. The activation radius is about 1 meter, and so enemies will typically have to be right on top of the mine for it to trigger. When the mine triggers, there will be a unique sound cue and the enemy will be dealt an initial 10 damage. Every few seconds after that, they will continue to take 8 damage until they stop and spend a few seconds to remove the needle, or are downed. When affected by the mine, there will be a bit of visual distortion and the affected enemy cannot sprint. They can either fight through the damage over time or they can decide to remove the needle from the leg to stop the bleeding effect. If and when they do decide to start removing the mine, they will be vulnerable since they cannot use their gun or shield, and so this is usually a good time for the Lesion player to try to take the kill. Because of the effects of the mine like I just mentioned, Lesion is very effective at picking off enemies who happen to step on his mine. He can essentially lay down his traps around a tight area which attackers are likely to go through and try to hold down the area by picking off enemies who get trapped. Doing this properly can slow down the attackers for quite a while, so that's what Lesion is good at I suppose. In one round, Lesion can have access to 7 of these traps in total, but he doesn't get them all straight away. He will start with 1 trap available, and then he will slowly generate 1 more trap every 35 seconds or so. Since he has so many traps and they are all invisible, there will be a little icon on top of the trap that you can use to track which traps are still up and which traps were triggered by the enemy, since the icon will disappear when that happens. While the traps are cloaked, they are not invincible, and so they can still be taken out by bullets, explosive, Thatcher EMP grenades, Twitch drones, bandit batteries, and even barricades and reinforcements if they happen to be below doors and are next to walls that are being reinforced. As an attacker, hitting the trap with melee will cause the trap to still take effect, so if you want to remove the trap, shoot it instead of hitting it with a melee attack. The mines cloak just like Echo's drone, and so at the right angles, observant attackers can still see those traps. However, with that being said, it is usually not worth the time to look around for traps, since it is actually pretty hard to detect them normally. Only IQ can easily find the mines with a gadget. Using a drone helps with looking for those mines since the lower point of view makes the shimmering cloaking effect more visible, so that's an option too if your team doesn't have an IQ and the Lesion traps are causing some issues. Here's a few interesting things to note. Lesion's mine can be used to create a lethal threat when used together with frost bear mats. If you put the Goo Mine somewhere nearby but not on top of the frost mats, people who get downed by the frost mats will likely die from the 10 initial damage from the mine when their legs touch the mine. Putting the mine too close to the mat will make them both go off at the same time when someone jumps onto them, so that's not what you want, since this combination will only down the enemy but not kill them. Stacking the mines all together will make it so that the person who steps onto them take a large amount of initial damage since each triggered mine applies its initial burst damage. However, the poison damage does not stack, so do bear that in mind when placing the traps around. I find that the traps are better used as a means to figure out where enemies are coming from, rather than relying on it to take out enemies by themselves, and so it is good to be nearby your traps when playing with Lesion so that you can be ready to swoop in for the kill while the enemies are distracted. The only limit to the usefulness of this gadget is your imagination, so be creative, and you can find lots of good ways to utilize the mines in various parts of every map. And so that's about it for Lesion's unique gadget. Now let us move on to talk about his weapons and gadget choices. Starting with his primary weapons, Lesion can choose between an SMG or a shotgun. His SMG is the T5 SMG, and I think that it is a very decent SMG. The gun deals 30 damage per round, fires 900 rounds per minute, and has a magazine capacity of 30. The gun's recoil is very manageable as well, and so I think the gun is definitely very useful when he's trying to hold down certain angles without much effort. I think that using the SMG as Lesion is preferred over the shotgun purely because of the longer range that it has, since it allows you to cover the different angles and pathways easier with the SMG. Moving on, Lesion's shotgun is the 612 SD, and it is a silent semi-automatic shotgun. The shotgun uses 6 round drums, and each shot has a base damage of 35, and from my experience with it, it packs a decent punch even though it is silenced, and so it can be used in slightly smaller objective areas quite well too. Next up, since Lesion has access to only one secondary weapon, I won't dwell too long on this. Lesion's pistol is the Q929, and it's just a standard pistol in Rainbow Six Siege. It deals 42 damage per round, and it has a 10 round clip. Mostly just handy for finishing off enemies like most other pistols other than Caveira's. So that's about it for Lesion's weapons. Now let's talk about his secondary gadgets. Lesion has access to a deployable shield as well as some impact grenades. The choice of a secondary gadget usually comes down to what you need for that round, and maybe a little bit of personal preference, so you will probably be varying it up every so often. The deployable shield is usually very useful when you're trying to defend in the objective room, or perhaps in some corner where you're well protected and you can cover a few important routes and angles. The impact grenade, on the other hand, is quite a versatile gadget that you can use as Lesion to quickly open up lines of sight on your enemies, finish downed enemies, open up hatches to quickly drop down a floor, and so on. And so it is usually my preferred gadget on Lesion, since there is a variety of ways to use my 2 impact grenades, especially when trying to hold down a certain important room near the objective room. So yeah, that's mostly it on Lesion's weapons and gadgets. Now let us move on to his playstyle and some of my gameplay tips with Lesion. With his ghoul mines, I think that Lesion's playstyle should be semi-aggressive, and he should either defend from a room nearby the objective room where he can get good lines of sight onto enemies trying to push into the objective room, or he can defend from inside the objective room. Because his ghoul mines are very good at detecting which direction enemies are coming from, Lesion should have the advantage in the firefight against the enemy who got hit by the mine, since he will get a heads up from the sound of his mine activating. The fact that the enemy cannot sprint while being affected by the poison, and they have to remain vulnerable while removing it, Lesion should win most fights 1v1 in those scenarios, assuming the other teammates are not there. My first tip for playing Lesion, and for placing his traps, is to visualize where enemies might come from, and visualize where they might try to stand to get good lines of sight into the objective room. If you can do this, you can place traps at locations that the enemy might have to run through to get to those spots to make them step on your traps. If you ready yourself and you camp in a nearby room, which lets you react to the trap activation quickly, you can easily get the pick on the unlucky enemy this way. In addition to placing traps at those locations I mentioned earlier, the other more obvious trap locations could be the objective room doors, or doors leading into rooms directly adjacent to the objective room, which enemies will likely attack from. These will not only slow down the enemy's advance toward the objective room, but they will also open up opportunities for you to take them down if you happen to be nearby as well. Moving on, another tip is that when you are trying to 1v1 a shield operator, you can try throwing the trap at their feet and hope that the trap activates onto them. At some point they will have to lower their shield to remove the needle, and so if you're careful about it, you can force the kill quite easily if the shield operator doesn't have backup, or if their backup is preoccupied with something else. Finally, my last tip for playing Lesion is just to be patient and calculative with your moves. Enemies are often most aware in the few seconds from when they trigger the trap, since they know that they messed up and you as the Lesion player knows it. And so you should wait at least a few seconds before trying to push for a kill, since they will be watching out for you initially because they know you'll be coming at some point soon. If you think they are expecting you to come from a certain direction, you can be sneaky and come from another direction too, by either quickly running to flank from the side or creating a hole in the wall with the impact grenades to get a better line of sight. And so yeah, Lesion is a great defender to use to flank attackers who are trying to push into the objective room. His gun is good, his traps are good for both intelligence and fights, his secondary gadgets supplement that, and he has a good 2 armor 2 speed stat line for that job. If you're patient enough and the somewhat sneaky and tricky playstyle is what you like, then go ahead and give Lesion a try. That's about all I have to say about Lesion, and I hope you found the video useful. A Ying guide, an Ella guide, as well as more Rainbow Six videos will be coming soon, so subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified when my new videos are up. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, leave a comment below and share this video with your friends. I greatly appreciate any and all support. And so until next time guys, have a great day, keep gaming, stay chill, and I'll see you guys in the next one, okay? Bye bye.